So my name is Safiya O'Connor, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Savoy Elementary School. I also serve as the math coach at that school for K to 5. So shout out to the village. I am going to present today called The Bumpy Road to Teacher Certification. And so the impetus for my research came from just hearing from so many teachers the very, very rough and tedious time it takes in order to be licensed in DC. And so the question that I want to answer is, how can teacher licensure protocol and requirements be redesigned to not only provide a consistent high quality education for our students, but also better serve educators? So this is called a crack in the pavement, and so a lot of us last summer, we saw this headline about 1,000 DC public school teachers were not licensed going into this current school year. And so this was a report that was done by the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. And so for those who don't know, DC Public Schools is our hiring authority, but OSSI, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, is the one that does all of our licenses. And this is very contrary to what we see in a lot of other school districts. And so in response to the report, DCPS officials have been sending out these emails that you see over here screenshotted that began to threaten disciplinary action to teachers if they did not, by a certain deadline, achieve their licensure. And for several teachers, sometimes it was a matter of months, and then for some teachers it was a matter of weeks that they were given in order to turn in all of their paperwork and be approved for their licensure. This also goes to what OSSI then began to publish this school year, which was the DC School Report Card. And the DC School Report Card is a profile of all of DCPS schools, and it includes things such as school points of pride, academic performance, attendance, and their star rating is what each school is given, but also the number of teachers that are licensed in each school. This is particularly important for us because this profile is given to parents, and so community perception on a certain school that has a lower star rating, included the number of teachers who are licensed, then influences their interest in enrolling their child at that particular school, which then has an effect on an overall enrollment and ultimately teacher jobs. So what does the literature say around this? So when ESSA was signed into law in 2015, re-signed into law in 2015 by President Obama, he took the mandate from a federal mandate on teacher licensure and put it down to schools. And what Ben Shahar, who wrote for Forbes magazine, wrote was that this is why education in schools are struggling how to teach teaching, and school districts don't know how to test teachers, because essentially teachers are coming into districts like the District of Columbia and are bogged down by this process of not only taking all of these tests, achieving these scores, but then going through the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, which does not always provide all of the answers that we need in order to secure our licensure. So of course, here at the union and in DC, I think that we can all say that teacher certification is important, that the data supports that students who are taught by teachers who are certified in their field do yield higher academic gains. However, in order to be re-licensed, teachers are pouring money into praxis exams, pouring money into application fees, but are not being licensed and are then being threatened with ultimately losing their jobs. Sorry, sir. So what did we decide to do? Instead of sitting in traffic, I decided that we should go and find some data and begin this research question on how we can recommend to DCPS and to OSSI how to better serve educators. And so data was collected with 45 teachers, 32 teachers were completed the survey, and additional 13 interviews were done. And background information was gathered around the years of service that the teacher had completed in general, years of service to DC Public Schools, their educational background, what board they teach in, and their current certification status. Here are some of the questions that were asked to receive small anecdotes from teachers. Questions like, have they attempted to submit their certification application to OSSI before? What supports were being offered at their school site by their administrators? Has the certification and how has the certification process affected you personally? And ultimately, what recommendations they had. To really narrow the focus of this study, only teachers in DC public schools were surveyed. Teachers were not surveyed in charter schools, private or parochial schools, because they're not held to the same requirements and the same mandates. And so this report that I talked about prior only spoke to DC public school teachers, and so I particularly wanted to focus on what supports were being offered to us as public school teachers. Here is my first chart, which talks about what ward the teacher currently taught in, and the majority of teachers, about 50%, currently taught in Ward 8, which is the ward that I currently teach in, but I was able to gather data from 6 out of the 8 wards. So, some of the data told us that about 40% of the teachers have been teaching 11 or more years in general, and then a very small, and then the next one was 28.1, where had been teaching 1 to 3 years. So either you had been teaching outside of the district for 11 plus one teacher had been teaching for 20 years, or you had been teaching 1 to 3 years, which correlates to the amount of time they had been teaching in DCPS specifically. It was an overwhelming about 66% of teachers have just started in the district. It's important to note here that DCPS, when you first are hired in DCPS, you're told that you're given up to 3 years to secure your licensure, and so most of the teachers who were currently in this band of possibly losing their job were in their first 3 years. And then highest education level, most teachers had completed a master's program or had completed beyond their master's program up to 30 credits, and that includes a state-approved licensure program, which next I can talk about. So that's the 55%, yes, they've completed an approved education program, which should lead to ease of licensure, but as we see, it has not, because 100% of the teachers who were surveyed currently had not achieved their standard licensure. And then this question was, have they attempted to submit their application before? And about 85% said yes. One teacher had tried to submit her application up to 4 times and was denied. And this also goes to the amount of money that it takes to complete their licensure application, the amount of money that it takes for teachers to also take the exam. So 100% of teachers, the most important part of this slide, have received no support at their school site. This is important also for me as an administrator, because we are not privy to the amount of teachers or which teachers in my school had not received their licensure. And so what was interesting was that upon sending out my survey, about 4 teachers who are currently in my school, who I see every day, responded, and I had absolutely no idea that they were currently going through this. And so a lot of teachers actually laughed in there. They go like, ha ha, what do you mean we would get support from our school site in order to be licensed? However, our principals receive reports weekly, monthly, telling you exactly which teachers are not licensed, and a lot of teachers were concerned about the ramifications of that as well. So some of the words that teachers used to describe how the process had affected them were words like it was tedious, it was costly. Oftentimes to take one practice exam is upwards of $190, and one teacher had taken it 9 times and had failed. Do your multiplication. It was horrible, it was bumpy, which led to the title of this. It was completely unreasonable, and most concerning, that it was heartbreaking. Teachers said that it has negatively affected their attitude towards continuing in DCPS. And some of the literature that I read, it talked about how DCPS has the district has some of the most stringent measures in order to be licensed, and that those stringent measures actually act as a deterrent for actually qualified teachers. And so teachers come in and they no longer want to continue working and serving our students in the district. There's a high level of anxiety. They feel pressured about the money, not knowing about the cost of the process. Constantly failing these exams would lead them to possibly losing their job. So removing the potholes, number one recommendation I had was that DCPS needed to create an office at DCPS that would be able to serve as an information giver for teachers in order to bridge the gap between DCPS and OSSI. In terms of the requirements that teachers, that DC has for teachers to secure their license, teachers said that teachers who are highly effective in other districts have the evaluation ratings to prove it, should be able to be grandfathered in through their evaluations. We should be able to have a combined score like other states. So in DCPS, you have to pass each exam separately as opposed to other states which offer a composite score. And then to get rid of the math core assessment for teachers who don't teach math. Next one. And then in terms of the protocol, teachers talked about having individual plans for teachers, sending OSSI or DCPS licensure staff to our school site to support us, offering free tutoring classes. Of course, we have the ones that are supported by the union, but having some by DCPS or the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, having a PD day for teachers where we can actually come in and receive information from DCPS on how we can receive our licensure. There were lots of opportunities as more questions came up for further research, particularly talking about the statistics in DC between public, charter, and private school educators. Also the pipeline of teachers who come in from traditional pathways to education versus alternative teaching pathways, and then which specific licenses are most difficult to attain, whether it be early childhood, elementary, reading specialists, etc.